be determinative as to whether we grant a variance either for a guest house or for an office. And we can start with the criteria. I think that some of the board members wanted to just make some general comments first, though. So why don't we do that? We will be going through each criteria though. So if a particular comment you have addresses that criteria, you know,
It seems that to change the use of the building requires the selectmen.
you have to speak loud for me.
To change the use of the building would require the selectmen to agree. If the selectmen agree, it would come back to us as a change in use in the non-conforming building.
Mhm.
And it'll be up to us to grant a variance on the setback. Looks to me like that's the step.
The problem is if the building as it's used now was conforming. And all they need to do is change its use, then the use goes back to the select board.
Right.
The select board says, okay, you can use it as a guest house.
Right.
And you're done. But in this case, they want to change the use. But it's non-conforming, so the grandfather thing goes away. Because now you're changing what it was originally approved for.
And that,
So the grandfather thing no longer exists. It's no longer within the
The
setbacks,
selectmen would have to say, we're going to let you change the use of the building.
right? And
But
then
you-
they gotta come
but
back
you
to
still
us.
have a problem with the setback.
So then they'd have to come back to
They have
us
to come to us for a
and say,
variance.
okay, they were approved for the guest house, but the setback is wrong. So now we have to
okay,
look at it from
The-
that. That's the way I read it.
what we are looking at is, you're correct, they have to go to the selectmen for a permit to make any kind of change. The problem is, and the reason that they have come directly to us, I believe, is because there's no provision in the zoning ordinance to allow them, for the selectmen to grant their request, because what they want to do, and this is one of the issues that we have to address, is they want to build or change an existing, they want to change into an detached accessory dwelling unit. And that's what they want to make. They want to make another dwelling unit, but it's not attached. Under the provisions of the zoning ordinance, in an LDR, the only permissible secondary dwelling unit has to be attached with that interior door. So the selectmen couldn't permit that because they don't have a provision to do it. So they come to us and they're saying, we would like a variance so that we can do this detached accessory dwelling unit, which is not, there's no provision for it now in there. And so that is one of the issues that we're looking at. I think that we have, another issue. And that comes up in the second question, second criteria, which the spirit of the ordinance is observed. And we can get to that. I think the first one is, from what I have read of case law, etc. The first criteria is the proposed use is not contrary to public interest. And that one's pretty difficult to find that.
The public at large. Not the
Yeah.
not the
Right. And it's pretty difficult to find that it's contrary to the public interest. It doesn't have to benefit the public. It doesn't have to even be neutral. It just can't be contrary to it. And I don't know how, if somebody has an idea why this might be contrary to the public interest, you can go for it. I don't have a strong sense of it.
My opinion, I think it's going to change the essential character of the neighborhood. There are no other ADUs in the neighborhood. The variance must be denied, and I'm just going it verbatim on the pages of the information that you gave. The other thing that bothers me is two owners mentioned property values would go down, which is another criteria. The values of surrounding properties are not diminished.
I know, but I don't.
Those are the two things that I took out.
Yeah, okay, and the first one, we'll get to that, the other one, I don't, it says it. When you say that it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. I believe that was what your first comment was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I don't know that that makes it contrary to the public interest when you're public interest is does it, from my perspective. Well, or maybe you can help me out with this because you're looking at it, but public interest goes to the whole
Public safety,
public safety issue.
public interest is.
Yeah,
The public at large,
Yeah, I mean,
What about the neighborhood wide versus a butter wide?
that, I think that's the one that where you get into the.
well, and I'm not sure even the neighborhood alone. Well, that might, but it's to me, this is hard to, it's very difficult. I find it difficult to find that the public interest, that this is contrary to the public interest. The public interest is, it goes to safety, it goes to what are the reasons that low density residential and all the zoning ordinances are there. And I don't know,
We're not storing fireworks in the building.
pardon?
We're not storing fireworks in the building.
No.
The public interest is beyond the immediate neighborhood.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's much broader than that. It's, the public interest is almost as amorphous as the entire state of New Hampshire or something, but just really, you're looking
Yeah.
at what is harmful.
Right, does the
And-
variance alter the essential character of the neighborhood or threaten the health, safety, or general welfare of the public?
Yeah, and
Now, I think that's kind of a stretch to say that
it
that would
does, I
be,
know, that's more or less the way I
um,
feel. But,
I mean,
and we can discuss the value. You had a concern about the value of the surrounding properties, and that's the fourth criteria.
That's a second.
So we will get to that one also. Okay, I think that we're going to need to make a determination on each criteria as we go along. To set out the record for the Gaudettes and for our own purposes. Does anybody want to comment more on what contrary to the public interest is? And I wish I had a better handle on it. I did give you some stuff to read, of which Pat,
Yeah, it says, it says here, right, I'm reading, it says alter the essential character of the locality. And that's, you're saying, don't interpret that as neighborhood?
no, it's neighborhood, it's locality, yeah.
All right, so.
But the public interest goes to, is this going to be harmful to the safety, health, the
Right, so and that's B,
welfare,
welfare, yeah.
right, so it's or, right, alter the essential character of the locality, which could be the neighborhood. Or threaten public safety, health or welfare, right? So my feeling, at least where I have some input, is alter the essential character of locality. It's gonna change the character of the neighborhood. Okay. You're gonna put another standalone structure where people can live, potentially someone could rent it in the future. It's gonna change the character of the neighborhood. It's in the front lawn, close to the neighbor's property line. And we have to be really careful in setting a precedence by approving this, because there's a lot of other sheds, there's a lot of other accessory buildings that I'm sure people would like to turn into guest houses that you could potentially rent to offset expenses for the property. So in my feeling, I strongly believe it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. You buy into a single family home neighborhood with other single family homes and you pay a premium for that. And that premium that you pay gives you elbow room, gives you space away from your neighbor, gives you lower density, lower noise, and all the benefit that brings as well. So if we.
What if they choose to use it as an office?
I agree with you in a sense, but it seems like you're looking at the future, but everybody else in the neighborhood's gonna do the same thing. We only are here to look at their property.
Yeah, I
And
am too.
it exists currently. Now, is it gonna change the essential character and the well-being and the health and the safety of all the neighbors?
It changes,
Because
it
they-
will not change, it
Because
will
they
not
did it in
change the
office.
welfare, safety. And public health, but it's gonna alter the essential character of the locality. So if you have a single family home and a single family home
And they have
neighborhood, and
families
everybody.
staying there.
Well,
what if-
yes,
what if
but
you-
what if every other single family house decided to go to Home Depot and put a large shed? And evolve that into some sort of guest house?
Well, that they
On
have
their
to do the
front
same thing.
lawns.
We have to look
The
at
place-
everything
They would have to
singularly.
come
They
in.
have to come before us. We'd have to do
No,
the same
they
thing.
would, no, they wouldn't, because that wouldn't start with it. You're talking about right now, that they would come in and build a large accessory building. And presumably not within the setback, because they can't do it. And that's one of the concerns here, is
think
this is
this-
within the setback, but if they were to come in and build it, they would not get permission to build that accessory dwelling.
Okay.
unit. And they could appeal to us and we would
Exactly.
not give it. The reason that we're
But-
here is because this is already an existing structure.
Correct, but if someone could build a shed, what is 10 feet from 10-foot setback?
Well,
Would
yeah,
that be
but it's-
allowed?
Yeah, but it's gonna be if you're talking about, yeah,
Right. So if someone builds a structure 10 feet from the property line, then comes before us a couple of years from now and say, hey. I want to turn this into an Airbnb. I want to turn this into a guest house. I want to turn it
that's-
to something.
that
Everything-
might be,
Something
but that you
very
have to
different.
remember that's going to be a what, 250 foot structure, square foot structure.
Well,
Only look what's
tiny
before
house.
us right
Yeah.
now, and then if something comes before us in
just-
6 months,
so
then we
my,
have to address that
my
then.
point is, it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. That structure becomes some.
It has to be 150 square foot structure.
What
If
I'm
it's gonna be
looking
within-
at for
If it's
that,
going to
I don't
rely on
think
the
it does,
10 foot
but I
setback,
think
there's
there's a lot of
150 foot.
problems with this, but I don't
square
think
foot
number
structure.
one is the problem. I think there's a lot of problems with
There's
this,
a lot
but
of
I don't think number one is the
My
problem.
concern
believe
is,
it.
is that the change goes with the house if it's on the house.
Exactly.
There's no way to
You know,
enforce it.
there's
way to
no way.
enforce it.
If we make this change. And it goes against what the zoning goes and we allow the variance. That change goes if they sell the house.
Correct.
Now we have no say.
No, it would go, it would. The change for their particular building,
Right.
that's the one we're looking at.
Right.
That would, that goes with the house.
It'll
So
follow.
if
the
there's a
trail.
variance, it will follow the house.
Correct.
That's right.
I think the greater problem, you guys, excuse me, my colleagues, is the second one.
Yeah,
The spirit of the ordinance is observed.
exactly.
I
And
agree.
that goes not to just the detached dwelling, accessory dwelling unit. That goes to this non-conforming use. And under that non-conforming use, it specifically states that any non-conforming use building, etc., may continue in the present use and form, except that any non-conforming use building, etc., may not undergo change in any of the following ways. And I'm in the zoning ordinance right now, reading it,
Mhm.
and that's on page 37 of the zoning ordinance. Anyway, it says, may not undergo change in any of the following ways. And the first one is building alteration. It says altered for a use for a purpose or in a manner substantially different from the use to which it was put before alteration. And I think that I have no question that changing this into a guest house from a permitted accessory building, I mean, that's a woodworking shop, that's an accessory building that's permitted.
Right.
And-
I agree.
And to change it into a guest house is to me a substantially different change.
I agree.
And if you go down and look at the selectman's ability to permit any kind of building or structure, and it's the use of any building or lots, erect and use any building or alter any existing building or other structure, or relocate it without first obtaining a permit from the selectman. But then it says, it goes on to say, but subject to the provisions of Article 7A above, And that is that they,
Responsibility of the selectmen.
yeah,
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
This,
yeah,
the setback goes away if the use changes.
yeah.
I mean, the grandfather goes away.
Right, but the setback remains.
No, but the
So
the
then. they need a
problem
set-
is, my problem is that they can't change the status because it's not permitted. I mean,
Right.
to say that the spirit of the ordinance saying that it can't be done is say that it's being observed. It's not, it's prohibited. The
Right.
specific thing is prohibited. And so to say that it's being observed, to me, is just nonsensical. Because how can you say you're even close to observing it if
It's not.
the only observation of it is that it's prohibited?
Right.
And that one I find to be really difficult for me to be getting around. I've had more trouble with that
Yeah.
during all of my review and reading and trying to understand
I agree.
what I consider it's very difficult to understand 5 criteria. Actually, I don't find them all. It's the 5th one that bothers me more than any, but this one is not, you know. The spirit of the ordinance is cannot be observed if it's a completely prohibited activity that they want to take. That's my feeling about this particular one. And so that one I have more problems with than number 1, because I find it difficult to, as I say, to say that it's contrary to the public interest. You know, I don't know. It's contrary to the zoning interest maybe, but not to the public interest. And I don't know how, would you like us to vote on each one separately, or should we go back and vote on,
Maybe go through them all and hold a vote in each one.
okay, but I think
I'm writing
we'll
down.
have to do each one separately, I think, for purposes of,
Vote on each one separately
yeah.
after we
eventually,
discuss.
After
all
we
four.
discuss it,
Okay.
okay. So anybody else on the spirit of the, well, go back to public interest, does anybody have any more commentary on the proposed use is not contrary to public interest?
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I know.
Public interest is public interest, not the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I think
me
it
too.
Clearly states in here whether it would,
Me
there's 2 issues here, and it's both A and B. Whether it would alter the essential character of the locality. If so, the variance
Yeah.
must be denied. And
Yeah,
in
that's
my
this one,
opinion,
right?
it does.
That's this
Yeah, and
one.
that's okay.
And
Black
then
and white.
B, then you talk about the public health, safety and welfare. That's a separate issue. I'm
No,
not
it says
saying.
or,
Right, look at this, Gene.
not,
Look,
Or.
here.
but your
Alter the
opinion,
essential character of
okay to be
locality
different than
or
our
threaten
opinion.
public health
Instead
safety.
of-
This is
I
in the
mean,
neighborhood, this
yeah.
is out of the neighborhood.
Yeah,
you know, I
Okay.
worked for a zoning and land use attorney for years. That, in my opinion, from what I saw, does not qualify as, but there's many problems
I agree,
here.
I agree with
That's
you.
not
Pat.
one of
It's only for,
Yeah.
there's other problems with the.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm reading it right here. It says A, alter the essential character of the locality, which I interpret as neighborhood, or threaten public health, safety and welfare, which is the general public, right? Storing fireworks.
okay.
It's an or.
And you're looking at the New Hampshire guidance, right?
Yeah.
For
New Hampshire.
criteria, yeah. Yeah. Just have a minute, I want to look at this. I think if you look under. Are you all looking at the variance criteria, the part that I sent to you about section 27? I mean,
Mhm.
starting on page 27?
Mhm.
the comment proving a negative, did you review that? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Um. And I don't think that we're gonna deny it based solely on the public interest, but I do think that it's. What I read here, and it's citing from a Supreme Court case, it says, for the variance to be contrary to the public interest, it must unduly and to a marked degree violate the basic zoning objectives of the zoning ordinance. I think with regard to having a detached dwelling, accessory dwelling unit, as opposed to an attached one,
It's,
I don't think it rises to that level.
what we're talking about is it's a guest house in a residential area.
Mhm.
It's not a fireworks factory in a residential area.
Yeah.
It's talking
Um,
about the
yeah.
public, not the neighborhood. I don't think it's this criteria is looking at the neighborhood, the
Yeah.
public at large.
Yeah.
Are we storing fireworks in there? Or are we gonna put bed?
Well, and really,
And
I
again,
think it's
for
stretching
me
it
to
too
say
far.
that it
I
alters the
agree.
essential character of the neighborhood
I think that
seems like it's going a little bit far.
Yeah.
It's a reach.
I mean, we're allowing it at one place.
everyone's thinking ahead instead of right here. What will this turn into?
Yeah.
Well. Let's look at what let's look at this property and in the future, something else will come to us and we can deny it, we can do whatever, but we have to look at this. And
Well,
is
and
this destroying the neighborhood? I don't think it's destroying the neighborhood.
No, and I think, I don't think it's altering the essential character of the neighborhood as a residential area.
No.
And I think that, precedent setting only to the extent that everybody else who wants to do a detached accessory dwelling unit is gonna have to come in for a variance
Right.
and show that they meet all 5 criteria, which will be difficult for
What we say
anybody to do.
on this first one is gonna come.
But anyway, okay,
Right.
yeah, let's go on.
we should move
Great
on.
on number
Yeah,
one,
let's-
so let's move on.
Yeah. Well, and that's just a matter of, I mean, each one of us is going to have our own view as to how it occurs, and we will, interpreting this can be difficult. Anyway, to go to the spirit of the ordinance observed. The spirit of the ordinance for the accessory dwelling unit being attached. I think from my perspective, it goes to that ordinance. It goes to, minimizing the spread, as it were, of the amount of dwellings on the building place. They're saying you can have the 2 dwellings attached to each other, which keeps it contained within this one area. We're talking about one now that's in another part of the property and wants to have a third one and, or whatever, but you're spreading out the dwelling unit concept, the primary dwelling unit concept this way. And I think that with regard to the accessory dwelling unit that, the spirit of the ordinance was to contain it, I think. But then we go back to my non-conforming concern, my use about the non-conforming.
The
Yeah,
the fact that the grandfather goes away and we're back to non-conforming immediately makes this not the spirit of the ordinance.
yeah, well,
It's
it's-
where,
it's prohibited.
right,
prohibited.
it
Being
makes it,
prohibited, I don't see
it
how.
ties our hands.
Yeah.
It's not,
It's a rule.
as if we want to change the use, then it becomes non-conforming, which
Right.
is then not the spirit of the ordinance.
Yeah. I just, on that one, I have a great deal of difficulty because of the prohibition. And I don't think that even the selectmen would be able to permit it. I mean, well, they couldn't because it says is that it's, you just can't do it. It's prohibited to doing it. And that was what the zoning ordinance originally said. So that one I find very difficult to say that, you know, it's within the spirit that changing the use is within the spirit. And it doesn't matter what the use is, if it's going to be substantial. There are certain uses that they could change it to any of those that are
Wow.
within an accessory dwelling, permitted accessory dwelling, which are, you know, and anything from a playhouse to, what were all those things?
But not a guest house / office.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? An accessory, okay, an accessory dwelling use is greenhouses, tool sheds, playhouses, home produce from a garden, storage of garages and carports, studios, swimming pools, patios, and dog kennels. So a studio, this is comparable to a studio. If you look up studios, it discusses the definitions of a studio, really go more to artists and
Artists,
yeah,
Yeah.
artists.
and the dog kennel isn't a commercial dog kennel.
No, it's
It's
your own personal
your own
dogs, yeah.
dog.
Studio. A studio is a building or portion of a building used as a place of work by an artist, photographer, an artist in the field of light handicrafts. I mean, what the prior owner used it as
What's that?
was an acceptable use.
Mhm,
But it then became non-conforming because of its location within the setback.
mhm.
And at that point, then we go back to the fact that they are going to make it, and they want to change it in a manner substantially different from the use to which it was put. And to me, I do believe this is substantially different. It says, if you look at, again, the definitions, I must say the definitions are wonderful. They have defined everything, which is why they have 103 definitions.
Mm,
Substantially different use is a use not permitted within the district in which the principal and the accessory use in question are located. So, and this is not a detached accessory dwelling unit is not permitted. So it's, you know, to me, it is substantially different.
It's a no.
And as such, it's prohibited. And we can't rewrite the zoning. We can
Right.
give a variance where something is not not prohibited, but there are permitted, you know,
Certain
things,
uses.
and it's not addressed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not within the permitted one, so that it's not addressed, and so we can give a variance to allow it. But I don't think we can rewrite the zoning laws and say that we're going to permit something that is prohibited.
Yeah.
I just don't see how we have the authority to do it.
I agree.
Anyway, so that's where I am, and I've struggled with that
Number two.
one a lot, but. Yeah. On 3. Substantial justice is done. And that it says which suggests that the loss to the individual must result in a gain to the general public, that it must be considered whether it's consistent with the area's present use. The problem here again, although I'm less, I might be open to persuasion if you guys have different thoughts, but here again, to me, the loss to the individual is not is the primary use of the property is as a dwelling unit. And that they have not lost any of that. That's still there. And so saying, no, we're not going to grant you a variance to do something that's not permitted. Because, and relying on this one would be to say that that the loss of this individual is great enough to make that much of a difference. I mean,
Right.
it's a primary dwelling. If you look what it is for a primary dwelling unit, that's there. It was there when they bought it. That's the purpose of where they bought it. The price that was paid for it, there's no loss there. That was because of the primary dwelling unit.
Right.
And there was at that time no other consideration, or maybe they had a consideration in their mind as to what they wanted to do.
It also,
Look, it was known when the property was purchased,
Yeah.
what was there,
Yeah.
and they haven't lost anything.
No,
but it also states on this is that a board of adjustment cannot alleviate an injustice by granting an illegal variance. Because of general justice capable of relief by granting a variance that meets the other 4 criterion. So you've got to have all 4 in agreement with this one.
Yeah.
All 4 of them.
Yeah,
the value of the surrounding properties is not diminished. I'm not sure whether, I wasn't convinced that financially their properties would be diminished or, but we don't have any really very expert testimony on that. No real estate agent came in and testified to that issue. But
You could get expert testimony saying. Contradicting each other,
I
so,
know, I've had,
Exactly.
totally,
I've sat through many
in
cases. where-
terms of real estate
Yeah.
values.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, that one would be very hard to prove unless it were something, and I guess when you talk about noise, then that's another issue that's before the zone, that's addressed in the zoning ordinances,
right.
you know. So
Yeah. I guess when I looked at this, I had a little bit of a different spin. I thought, well, someday, if ever it becomes a rental unit. Someone goes to buy a house and there's a rental unit 20 feet away, 30 feet away. That could make the property less desirable, therefore diminish your value as well.
Yeah. That is a problem with it
There is a
being-
negative connotation to
Yeah.
rentals and I think we're seeing it in the valley now
Yeah.
among the condominiums.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the associations, and that was kind of the way.
Yeah, a
my
lot of them
thought
are,
process,
yeah,
yes.
a lot of them are addressing that issue because it's, you know, they are concerned of what it will do.
Correct.
And I've run into it in a number of personal areas.
So I view, you know,
Yeah.
the use of this property could diminish the value of the budding properties. Especially if it's a rental.
Yeah, and of course, that's speculative as to whether it's going to become a rental at some future time, you know. It could be,
It could be,
you know, the next owner, even if
can't prevent it.
the applicant doesn't want now, but the next owner can go in for a permit.
Correct.
That they could go in. And
Says
they
here,
still have to overcome some of the problems that this one application is also facing too, if we do that, but
It says that the ZBA, now this is from that.
Yeah.
The handbook.
Okay.
The ZBA members must also draw upon their own knowledge of the area involved reaching a decision on
Yeah.
this and other issues.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and that's because it's, as Barbara pointed out, bring in 2 experts on each side and they'll both say whatever they're being paid to say.
Exactly.
I mean, well, they'll only hire an expert that agrees with them, is the way it goes. I've known attorneys who have had their expert arrive on the plane and they sit down and start talking to them and they put them on a plane and send them back. Because their expert wasn't,
Yeah.
you know, where they are. So I find that very hard to, you know, that's an up and down, but
unless
no
it's
evidence
an
was presented
obvious
like that.
change, like
Yeah.
a fireworks
Yeah.
lighting thing is
Yeah.
going in,
Yeah.
of course, that's gonna be,
Yeah,
but this is,
yeah, so I mean, you know.
no,
it
might not.
It might diminish the immediate abutters
It
as
might,
opposed to the rest of the, you know,
might.
people on River Road might not have a problem.
But that's not a definite.
No, it's not a definite.
The other problems are,
But it could,
Yeah, the other
yeah,
problems,
it could.
it could,
it could, but the other problems I think are.
correct.
And let's touch on the last one too. Denial of the requested use will result in unnecessary hardship. And when I reviewed that, my understanding is the hardship complained by this property owner, if it's shared by similarly situated property owners, it's not a hardship. I mean, if what they're complaining about, the claim, you know, is that it's a hardship if they can't use this building the way they want to use it.
Mhm.
But there's nothing that makes this particular property any different from any other property in
That's
lower
what it
density
says.
residential,
That's what it says.
you know.
I agree.
It's not different from the others, so then how can you claim that they're saving, that their characteristics of this property are so unique as to make it different?
Kind of
Yeah.
basic.
I mean, there's no particular characteristic of this particular property that makes it different from others.
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's actually true.
What makes it different?
That they have a non-conforming structure on their property that's 780 square feet that they're paying taxes on. And they can't do anything with it.
Well, they can use it for
can.
many other uses.
Sure, 780 square feet, boy, that's one big snowmobile.
It would vary-
Relative to square footage of the house, it's not that far off.
Yeah, but
We're
if,
talking-
the thing is it was there when they purchased it, they knew it was there.
Right.
All I'm
And
saying is it's different than any other property in the area. I'm just throwing that.
you're probably right, and
It is
I don't-
very
I don't
much
know.
different than any
I don't
other
know, yeah.
property in the area.
I don't know whether it is or not, but other properties have accessory buildings on them. And they're no different in that way. They can't turn their accessory dwelling units. Well, if they're non-conforming, they can't turn them into anything except another accessory use as permitted under residential generally. And if we go to home office, I actually think that a home office might stretch as that being a normal evolution. Well, and I mean, if you could have let's say an artisan studio,
Mhm.
somebody who does ceramics, they're gonna have to have water and sewer in there, they're going to have electricity. And they can set it up as an artisan studio. I would think that using it as an office, a home office. Not as a professional office, but just as a home office, that would be within that whole purview. I mean, I would have much less problem with the home office than I do with putting in a detached dwelling unit within a setback where they're specifically prohibited from making that kind of an alteration to it. I mean, that to me, I feel like we have one thing that,
But even an office, it's not listed as one of the uses, right? So-
no, but it's not
I agree with you.
yeah, it's not so
but-
different. That it's not sort of a normal, you can move into that more than you can leap from, you know,
I agree,
an artisan studio as a woodworking shop in part is.
but it's still a change in use,
It's a change in use, but it's not substantial to me.
right?
It's not, it doesn't meet the substantially different from the use to which it was put before the alteration, which is what's prohibited. So. You know. I have a note to myself, which I think I've already stated, but that the fact that they don't want to use the accessory building as it is permitted does not make their property characteristic unique. I know you feel differently about it, Barry.
I just think it, based on, when you look at the property and you look at the map,
Mhm.
I don't see any other property that has that exact footprint on it, or that has that on it. I mean, sure, people have little barns and things like that, like Willie Peckham up the road, he's got he's got a little shed that he puts his
Yeah.
garage, his lawnmower and, that kind of stuff in it. But I just think this one is, it's unique. It's different than
Yeah,
any
there's
other.
there's a property. If you go down West Branch, see the big red barn, take a right, go all the way down to the end. There's a home and a large barn. That's detached. That has a high square footage relative to the square footage of the house.
That's what it is.
Anybody living in it?
The Wangers.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that the Wangers?
Yes,
Who's,
Wangers.
the Wangers.
oh, yeah.
And it's a shop, garage, and it's a good size.
But presumably it was in some way permitted to be built.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it may have been considered an appropriate accessory use, depending on what its use is. I don't know what it's used as.
It's a shop garage.
But a dwelling unit is
Yeah.
not,
It's
a
not-
dwelling unit is not inappropriate. It's
Yep.
not a permitted accessory use. Oh, it's almost 5. Do you want to vote on each one of these now, or do you want to think about it? In light of our discussion,
I move to vote.
you want
I'm
to
okay
move?
with vote.
You all want to vote? Okay. Does anybody want to discuss anyone further? Okay. It will take 3 out of 5 of us. Control.
To the original
No.
variance?
No.
Okay.
On number 1, the proposed use is not contrary to the public interest. Barry? No. Tom?
It's not contrary to public
What?
interest. It's not contrary to public.
It's not,
interest.
okay. So you would say yes, they meet
Yes,
that
I would say
criteria.
yes to that one.
Okay, Barb?
Yes.
Yes. I vote yes.
No,
Okay. On number 2. The spirit of the ordinance is observed. Barry?
No,
Tom?
No,
Barb?
No.
I vote no.
no,
Okay. 3. Substantial justice is done. Barry?
yes,
Tom?
yes,
Barb?
Yes.
I vote yes also.
yes,
Okay. 4. The value of the surrounding properties is not diminished. And this is a financial value that we're talking about, not a use value.
Right.
Barry?
I say no.
Okay.
I say yes.
Mhm. Barb,
Yes.
I agree. I just don't think there's enough information, Paul.
no,
Okay,
due to the testimony I heard today.
Yeah.
And if I put myself in the abutter's shoes,
you feel that was,
property's value will be diminished.
okay. 5, denial of the requested use will result in unnecessary hardship by this, for this property owner. Barry? Do they meet that criteria that it will result in unnecessary hardship?
Yes,
Yes,
They do meet it?
No.
I would say no, they don't. Oh,
Nope,
okay. based on the votes, we have. They must meet all 5 criteria. They do meet criteria 1. They do not meet criteria 2. They do meet criteria 3. They meet criteria 4. They do not meet criteria 5. Therefore, the variance cannot be granted in this case. Now, that is for the putting in a secondary dwelling unit. If we were to approve a home office that was limited to the addition of sewer and water and what's already got electric, I guess, so sewer and water, which could permit putting in a bathroom. Do you want, we haven't discussed that as
How does
extensively.
that still meet criteria 2?
How would it meet criteria 2?
I
That,
don't-
well, because the question is would that be such a substantial change from it being used as a woodworking? If you're talking about the non-conforming aspects.
Yeah, we couldn't get around number 2, so.
No, well, you couldn't if you're changing it into a dwelling unit from a workshop, from a permitted workshop, accessory building. But to change it from a workshop into a home office.
Right.
I don't, you know, it's, everybody will have a different view on that, but would it meet the criteria? Or would it actually not need a variance? Because it is a natural extension. Assuming the home office is limited to what an office would have. Which I don't think would include a kitchenette, and I don't think it would include a bedroom. You know, it would be an office with a desk and filing cabinets, the normal.
What about a
improvements.
bathroom?
Huh?
What about a bathroom?
I think a bathroom could be put in. They could put a
Half bath,
bathroom in.
full bath?
I would say an artisan studio, which is permitted. You know, could have a bathroom for some reason at the time that,
An artist would need a sink.
Huh?
Correct, yeah, I guess.
I mean, if they're gonna have water
Will
and
it have-
sewer anyway.
Will it
that-
have, you'll have the ability to shower or not shower if you put in a home office.
Yeah, it depends. But again, it can't be a dwelling unit, it can't be a place where people can sleep.
Correct.
It would be a place where somebody goes to do certain work.
Yep.
But it would not be a sleeping place. Because that would turn into a dwelling unit.
Could it be a yoga studio?
Pardon?
Could it be a yoga studio?
Could it be a yoga studio?
Meditation.
I,
Is it commercial or is it for
that might
yourself?
be quite different than, I mean, most of the artists and most of the accessory units are either non-habited. Non-inhabited at all. You know, they're for storage of equipment or various things that we cited when we ran through that list. But if you're gonna start inhabiting, that was pretty much limited to the artisan studio. To a studio or some use like that, which, as I say, includes most of studio is the artisan's studio, and that means that there will be times when an individual will come there and they will do certain work, usually by themselves. Maybe they need a second person to help them something, you know, but for the most part, they would be there working by themselves. And then go on their way to do whatever activities they wanted to. So it would be, and I think Mark's or the prior owners woodworking shop, you know, qualified that, satisfied that. And I think that a home office would be similar in that someone would come there, they would use it as for what use it's there for, and then they would leave. I don't find it, I don't find I have.
In the residential LDR.
Uh-huh.
It was-
Yeah,
was-
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure, that's page 9, 10. Oh, maybe.
Page
No, it's
18.
further than that. Help me out, here we go. Page 18, okay.
Page 18.
You're looking at the accessory units? Okay. Greenhouse, tool sheds, playhouses,
From occupation.
home produce, garden. Garages and carports, studios, swimming pools,
You're looking at this?
but where are you looking? A home occupation? Yes,
Well, that's,
yeah, but have you looked at the definition of what a home occupation is?
yeah, that's,
A home occupation is. What, because the home occupation doesn't go to the accessory unit, Tom. That goes to the, what you can use in residential. And home occupation is,
this is
Within a
residential.
dwelling.
it's a use conducted entirely within a dwelling. Except for gardening, which is incidental technical use of the dwelling for dwelling purposes and which does not change the residential character thereof. It's within the existing dwelling. They can have a home occupation, and that is discussed further. It would not be, the home occupation would not be incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling itself. For dwelling purposes. They have their home. And within that home. They can have a home occupation, which actually means they can have somebody else living within it. They can rent out a couple of bedrooms. Or a bedroom if they want. But it doesn't change the essential nature.
Here's this thing.
Hmm?
The house next to me has a potential room over the garage.
Mhm.
Connected to the house.
Mhm.
But the stairs are in the garage. He could, if he were an attorney. He could move his office in there and operate out of that. I think you're being too. A lot of things are allowed in lower density residential,
Mhm.
if they're in the house. You can actually have. The only problem you have is parking. You could have a lawyer's office in your house, but you have to get permission for the parking. But you can't park in the street, and you have to have the parking on your
Well,
premises.
usually you have to have two exits.
So the house built next to me was built next to me with another room over the garage, with a separate set of stairs inside the garage. With 3 extra parking spaces in front of it, and if they wanted to open a lawyer's
Are there
office,
2 exits?
Okay,
So there's 2 ways to get out of that room above the garage?
Yeah.
Okay,
the windows are big enough.
okay,
no, that doesn't
okay,
count.
well, the
usually,
hypothetical is
but-
fun, but. It's getting,
I mean, yeah,
let's go back just to this. When you look at
I'm
the
just-
uses,
that's
I'm just trying
From
to
a
find some common
fire
ground.
stamp. I'm not
Yeah.
saying people wouldn't do it. I'm just saying legally,
I'm just
if
trying
there was
to-
a fire, they couldn't get out of the room above the garage, right? If it was near the stairs. So is this supposed to be 2 forms of egress? It's for safety, but not to say it wouldn't be done.
anyway,
I agree with you.
the uses allows for renting 1 or 2 bedrooms in an owner, this is under residential, in an owner occupied dwelling for transient use. With approval as a home occupation. So the home occupation goes to the primary dwelling.
Correct.
Hmm?
Correct.
I'm trying to find something,
But I don't have,
something that we could,
I think that it could be used as a home office. I mean, when I look at it, I think that that's a natural, it's a natural extension of
Like
what's permitted
studio, yeah.
of the studio, you know.
Well, and technically, the woodworking is,
the
you know,
discussion
that's
you're gonna have.
working.
Pardon?
Can we place
The
conditions
the issue on the home
that
occupation,
shouldn't be decided by us? No.
it's all about the parking. On your property,
Mhm.
you have the capacity to have home occupation. You're not connected to the sewer, and it's not a bedroom, it's a building.
Yeah.
You can operate out of.
Yeah.
You have the parking. things there.
It's gonna what?
It'll be okay.
Are you on a zoning board?
You're saying that.
If it
this
was
can-
an
that-
office.
Are you talking about it being
Okay.
used as a guest house?
No, talking about
Office.
the building they have. could be used for a home occupation. As long as they have adequate parking for
Okay.
visitors to come.
Okay,
You're an accountant.
yeah, I see what you're saying. You're
Can't
talking,
say
you're
that.
talking about it as being
I
a
think
professional.
You're
use.
saying occupation as profession,
Yeah,
Yes,
not
Where-
as
yeah,
sleeping.
where
here.
he's talking about, I mean, they're talking about a home office, which I understand to be what many of us have in, some of us have in our homes, which is a office,
and I'm
an
telling you
office
this, and I'm
that
telling you
you
this
use for
works as a
personal.
home. This works as a home occupation.
Mhm.
If you're going to have visitors come to you at your occupation,
Mhm.
it's the parking.
That's the
that
problem,
says no.
Yeah.
If you don't have off-street parking.
yeah, and it
you
doesn't,
can't operate a home, you
Yeah,
can't be a lawyer or an accountant.
Can I ask a question, back up a little bit?
I can, let me just
Go ahead.
make one comment, which is, if you get into parking, there are pages on parking.
Yeah, it was-
You know, what the zoning
But
ordinance,
I don't think they're asking.
But that's not
I don't
what
think they're
they're-
going to have
yeah,
clients.
They're
visiting them.
talking
They're just
about-
working
yeah.
remotely.
Yeah.
This isn't, a commercial space that's gonna
Yeah.
be used.
Which one? do you-
But. I think that's. I would think that would be less
Mhm.
intrusive than woodworking. To the
Oh,
neighbors and
yeah,
if they had put in a desk
So
and
where are
a,
we going with this?
That's
Well,
what I
well,
want to talk about. So
Something
if
to
we,
find out.
we have, I think that we have agreed, we have,
Barry,
Said
we
that a
agreed they
variance
can't
being
do what they
issued
want.
for
Correct.
purposes of a dwelling,
That I
Now
understand.
we're
a
trying to
substantial
help them.
change
What could they do,
is not permitted,
other than make it a story?
because they
Yes,
don't
but
meet
is
the
it gonna be
criteria.
up to us to say, okay, this is what you
So-
can put.
So we're
in this.
pointing,
No, no.
we're pointing them in a direction.
All right,
No, what I'm saying actually is that I think that if they put in a home office there, that's a natural extension of an accessory, of the current accessory use. It's not a substantial change, and it would be considered, I would find it can fall within the accessory uses that are permitted under residential.
and what are you gonna allow them to put in there? And is that up to us to make that decision, what you can
That's my
put in
question.
that
Mhm.
office?
that's
What in that area? I don't think that's up to us.
right. So
No,
we
we're
can't
not
restrict,
making a
so the
decision.
application, hold on, the application highlights bath, kitchen, bedroom, everything else, but it says home office and,
Slash
Uh,
home office.
right.
So
yeah,
I'm treating it as two separate, but maybe they can't be
Right.
treated as two separate.
But wouldn't they have to submit a variance that's accurate, that removes the,
Actually, what they would
bath,
have to do.
kitchen, everything
if it's a
else,
home- if
bedroom?
only if they're going for is a home office, they would need to go in and request a permit. And if it, and from my view, they wouldn't need a variance. I would think that
Oh, I
would
see
be a
what you mean.
permitted accessory use.
Just trying to put some boundaries around.
it's
What
like
can you do
making
with that?
sausage.
What can you do with that building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that it,
You
since,
can't have somebody live in, what else can you do with the damn?
okay, I
Yeah.
think that if perhaps the more appropriate way to do this, and by separating it mentally was not this, was not a good idea. Maybe we should just agree that what they want to do is all one thing. That they want to make a dwelling unit out of it.
Mhm.
And put a desk in the dwelling unit to make it a home office.
Mhm.
I mean, is that,
That's
and
what
as
the,
such, that
that's what
that
the
is, sub-
application
the
is.
home
telling
office
you.
is,
Applications.
yeah, the home office is subsumed. It's not a separate issue, but it's subsumed in the dwelling unit.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Okay,
just trying
and if
to,
that's the case, then our initial votes were
No,
covered both,
yeah,
because we can't really separate out the home
Correct.
office that way. As I said,
and like you said.
If they want to
If it
go-
was simply home office, they might not even need us.
yeah, they would need to go and discuss that with permitting entity, whoever that agent is. The selectmen,
Although I don't think a kitchen is,
kitchen that would be part of it, no,
no,
that might be, yeah,
it would be half bath, not a full
but
bath.
that would, yeah. That would be up to whoever does the permitting.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's something. But I think that you're right, the home office, the way it was worded and everything, the home office is subsumed in it, and I separated it out because I thought the home office could be done. Without having to have the variance, but I would agree with you all that I am probably not reading it correctly, and the appropriate way to do it is that that was part of the dwelling
Right.
unit that they wanted to put in. On that grounds, I think that we have made a determination, and the determination is to deny the variance.
Yep.
Okay. And I will write up an order as such, or a response,
I didn't know when you were an alternate or a member.
and submit it to the
So
review.
videos that I
Um, The hearing is now
Okay.
adjourned.
Okay.